Welcome to Truth Report. Tonight, we peel back the layers of global power, exposing the hidden mechanisms that dictate conflict, peace, and the very sovereignty of nations. Forget the headlines, we're digging into the unseen forces shaping our world, from legislative acts in Washington to threats hurled across the Mediterranean and the subtle shifts in global order.
We often hear about aid and alliances, but rarely about the ironclad laws that entrench imbalances. Our first story, from Middle East Eye, reveals how U.S. legislation isn't just supporting an ally, it's legally mandating a perpetual military advantage for Israel, known as its Qualitative Military Edge, or QME. This isn't just policy, it's the law.
This QME law, codified by Congress, dictates that the U.S. must ensure Israel maintains military superiority over any combination of its potential adversaries. This means advanced weapons sales to Arab states are often deliberately downgraded or restricted. The official narrative is regional stability, but the reality is a legally enforced imbalance, crippling true deterrence for other nations.
Who benefits? Clearly, Israel gains an untouchable military hand, backed by the full weight of U.S. legislative power. But the U.S. military-industrial complex also benefits, selling advanced, albeit sometimes modified, armaments to both sides while ensuring a perpetual market. It's a calculated strategy that keeps Washington at the center of regional security.
What the mainstream media often overlooks is how this legal framework directly enables aggressive posturing. Consider the recent threats from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, as reported by Middle East Eye, doubling down on vows to strike Beirut. These aren't just empty words, they're spoken from a position of legally guaranteed, overwhelming military might.
Indeed, Netanyahu's threats to bomb Lebanon's capital are a stark reminder of the QME's real-world implications. This isn't just a political soundbite for domestic audiences, it's an explicit projection of power, enabled by decades of U.S. military transfers and technological superiority, that directly threatens civilian lives and regional peace.
The human cost is immense. While pundits dissect geopolitical chess moves, the people of Beirut live under the shadow of these threats. The mainstream narrative often frames these as reactive measures, but the QME ensures Israel holds a proactive, offensive capability few nations could match, making such threats carry devastating weight.
This brings us to another critical piece from Middle East Eye, Lebanese President Joseph Aoun stating the country has no other choice but to continue negotiations. This phrase, no other choice, speaks volumes about the immense pressure and lack of sovereign agency Lebanon faces, caught between its internal crises and powerful external actors.
Lebanon's economic collapse, political paralysis, and the constant threat of military action from its neighbor, emboldened by U.S. law, leave it in an impossible bind. When a nation's leader declares they have no other choice, it's a direct admission of compromised sovereignty, driven by a cocktail of internal fragility and regional bullying.
The negotiations President Aoun refers to are often cloaked in diplomatic niceties, but for Lebanon, they're existential. Whether it's maritime borders, resource allocation, or political concessions, the deck is stacked. Who loses? The Lebanese people, whose future is being decided under duress, with their leadership cornered by overwhelming external forces.
So, we see a direct line. U.S. law guarantees Israel's QME, which enables military threats against Lebanon. This, combined with Lebanon's internal vulnerabilities, forces its leaders into negotiations where they explicitly state they have no other choice. This isn't just news, it's a systemic pattern of power projection and coercion.
Exactly. This chain of events is deliberately obscured by a media landscape that often compartmentalizes news, failing to connect the dots between a legislative act in Washington, a military threat in Jerusalem, and a desperate plea from Beirut. It's a testament to how deep structural power operates, often unnoticed in plain sight.
Now, let's broaden our scope, shifting from the specific dynamics of the Middle East to a more global assessment of power. A thought-provoking piece from the South China Morning Post suggests that Trump has buried the liberal world order, but what comes next could be better. This challenges a deeply entrenched Western narrative.
Indeed. For decades, the liberal world order has been presented as an unassailable good, a beacon of stability. Yet, the SCMP article, from an Asian perspective, posits that its dismantling under Trump, while disruptive, might actually open doors for a more realistic framework of coexistence, strategic stability, and managed competition.
This perspective suggests that the unipolar moment, where Washington dictated global terms, is over. The liberal order wasn't universally benevolent, it often served U.S. interests above all others. What benefits China and other rising powers now is a multipolar world, less ideological confrontation, and more pragmatic engagement.
Who loses in this shift? Perhaps those who benefited most from the old order, the traditional Western allies whose influence was amplified through U.S. hegemony. The mainstream media in these nations often frames this as a decline into chaos, rather than a necessary rebalancing of global power, potentially leading to more equitable international relations.
The SCMP hints at a move beyond ideological divides towards practical coexistence, even between rivals like the US and China. This isn't about replacing one hegemon with another, but potentially diversifying power centers and fostering a more genuinely multilateral approach to global challenges. It's a hopeful, albeit cautious, outlook.
This broader pattern of shifting global power also plays out in seemingly localized political struggles, like the snap polls in Malaysia's Johor state, also reported by the South China Morning Post. While it appears to be internal politics, it reflects the fragility of democratic institutions and the constant tug-of-war for power in a post-hegemonic world.
Malaysia's political landscape has been tumultuous for years. These snap polls aren't just about a comeback bid for the once dominant Umno-led coalition or a test for Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim's alliance. They're a microcosm of the global struggle against entrenched elite power, corruption, and the often illusory promise of reform.
What the mainstream media often misses in such elections are the deeper structural issues, the ethnic divisions exploited for political gain, the crony capitalism, and the struggle to consolidate democratic norms against powerful, wealthy interests. It's not just a contest of personalities, it's a battle for the soul of the nation's governance.
Who benefits from this ongoing instability? Often, it's the political elites who master the art of navigating these choppy waters, regardless of who is in power. The ordinary Malaysian citizen, seeking stable governance and economic prosperity, frequently loses out amidst the constant political maneuvering and power plays.
Connecting these threads, we see how a legally enforced military edge in one region, the no-choice negotiations of a vulnerable nation, the threats of aggression, and even a local election in Southeast Asia, are all symptoms of a global power structure in flux. The old order is dying, and the new is struggling to be born.
Whether it's the QME dictating military power, or the liberal world order giving way to something new, these aren't abstract concepts. They have tangible, often devastating, impacts on real people. Our job at Truth Report is to expose these connections, to show how power truly operates, not just how it's presented.
The common thread is the obfuscation of power. Laws are passed in Washington that guarantee military dominance abroad. Leaders are forced into impossible negotiations. Threats are made. And the media often fails to connect these actions to their systemic roots, or to question the very framework of global power.
From the Middle East to the shifting global stage, and even down to a local election, the mainstream narrative often simplifies, sanitizes, or outright ignores the structural injustices and power imbalances at play. It focuses on symptoms, not causes, on personalities, not systems.
This is why vigilance is crucial. We must question the narratives presented to us. We must demand accountability from our leaders and from the institutions that claim to protect us. The truth is rarely simple, and it's certainly never found on the surface of a headline.
So, what's the call to action? Demand depth. Demand connections. Don't settle for surface-level reporting. Support independent journalism that dares to connect the dots and challenge entrenched power. Engage with diverse sources, like Middle East Eye and the South China Morning Post, to understand the world from multiple perspectives.
Educate yourselves, share critical information, and challenge those who perpetuate misleading narratives. True power lies not in blind acceptance, but in informed questioning. Only then can we begin to dismantle the systems that perpetuate conflict and injustice.
From Truth Report, thank you for joining us. We'll continue to expose the truth, no matter how uncomfortable.
Good night.